Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So I just watched a short clip about a Martin Luther King speech and another clip about a white supremacist who called into some sort of a talk show or podcast. And he said flat out that he voted for Trump to support white supremacy. And we see that there's a lot of that going around these days. And in the Martin Luther King video, he brought up the phrase moral ideal. The ideal man is morally precise. The highest manly path, the most moral path, the highest moral, mental, and spiritual path, the highest romantic path is the top martial artist path. And immediately people believe that I am telling the truth about God and others aren't when I bring this up and other people don't. It's important to understand this. So we see that this is a common and recurring theme. Right? I saw the Martin Luther King Jr. Clip that the BBC channel brought up. I saw this gentleman in his talk show where some white person called in who was racist and very disrespectful. And there's people encouraging people to be very disrespectful. And the idea of the highest and most manly path, okay, how it relates to these two events that occurred, right? The BBC uploading that clip for people to see because Martin Luther King Day occurred recently. The person calling in, okay, and the denial of the highest path because it's a universal path, right? It's not a racial supremacy path. It's not a corporate path. It's a universal path. So, as you see people kind of bringing up some things and not others, it makes it so that they're less kind of credible, less reliable. We see what they are doing and what they aren't doing. We see them making it harder for me to say what I'm trying to say. So when I bring up something that other people do not bring up, and I struggle to say what I'm trying to say, they say, I can believe this guy. He's got my attention. You might struggle to understand what I'm saying a little bit, but that is a trade-off that's worth having. It's easier for me to type it out, but if I type out things and put on the screen, people might not want to read it, and they could change what I type on the screen. They could change what I'm saying in the video, but it's a little bit harder to. And so as part of my moral repetition, I say, what's the precise thing to do? Well, to keep making videos. While other people are watching TV, playing video games, preparing for work, while I'm blacklisted for doing what's right, I keep making videos because it's the precisely wise thing to do. A lot of times I kind of think out loud anyway, so I may as well make videos, get it on record, and try to put it out there, and some people are hearing what I say. So when we look at Proverbs 28, it says, when a wise king sits on his throne to judge, he winnows out evil with his eyes. In verse 26, it says, a wise king winnows out the wicked, he drives the threshing wheel over them. So notice a wise king, a wise and righteous king. A wise king is righteous if he's truly wise. He addresses evil. He says, hey, what's going on there? I'm going to kind of purge out that evil by being very discerning and by having the accompanying actions that come with moral discernment, true discernment. I'm going to trample. I'm going to drive the threshing wheel over. I'm going to stomp out and stamp out evil. That's what he says with his heart, with his being. So it's important to note that people believe me. And when they try to make it harder for me to speak, people see that as me carrying my cross. Now I'm telling you the truth. As somebody's been going on and on about how he's the top martial artist ever possible in a society where people flip out over much less than that, where countless people say, destroy your ego. Why they have privileged people all over the place who have extreme egos, with people feeding into their egos, and no matter what you say about them, they're not going to destroy their ego. But they zoom in on me, and they zoom in on poorer people, and say, destroy your ego. Second point I'd like to make, we'll call that my first point, which has to do with the highest path and the video clips I saw. Point number 2, the word martial is marital scrambled, and I am Christ, the top martial artist ever possible, the bridegroom. You have to understand that I watch videos all the time, and I comprehend what they say. I understand what they're saying. And then I explain it, and I comment. People never say, hey, where did you get that from the video? That's not in the video. They don't say that. They know that I've understood the video, and they hear what I say, and more often than not, they agree with me. I have a long history of that. My sanity and my sense has been proven time and time again. I take on very difficult topics, and my insights are greatly appreciated. In a sense, right? But people respond and so on and so forth. So when I bring up that I'm the top martial artist ever, okay, you got to realize we live in a very competitive society. California is not the most diplomatic martial art place. America isn't the most diplomatic martial art place. When I bring up my top martial arts challenge, people believe me that it's authentic, it's fair, it's just and right, and that my conclusion is sound. They ascertain that I have a correct conclusion on that topic. And when I say that I'm persecuted, like I said the first day of the challenge in 2013, I said I'm the top martial artist and that I'm being persecuted for my political views, something to that effect. And then I expanded my challenge at some point to include the whole world. And I started reaching out to people saying, hey, if you think your style could beat me, hey, come accept it, and so on and so forth. As a result of me reaching out, lots of people came through and said, okay, I'll think about it and stuff. Some people accepted the challenge and they lost, and so on and so forth. That's my second point, right? When I say the word martial is marital scrambled, and I am Christ because I'm the top martial artist ever possible, and I bring up that it's more logical to believe that the miracles are figurative and that the Son of God is the top martial artist than to believe that God expected you to believe that somebody did miracles, walked on water, resurrected people, okay? And he did it in the most corrupt nation on the planet that's the most likely to lie about God as a result. The Romans went around forcing people to change their religion. So-called Christians went around, like so-called Muslims, and went around forcing people to change their religion, persecuting them. They fought against each other, right? The Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, what have you. Why would a fair, just, and righteous God, the one true God, expect you to believe that? But would he expect you to believe that you're supposed to rally to me? You betcha. As they say, you betcha. That is something that you can find reliable. That is the truth of the comparison. You have no evidence that someone named Jesus actually and literally came back to life. People getting sexually abused who claim to be Christians, sexually abusing people who claim to be Christians. People are lying all the time. They get caught in hoaxes. The Ku Klux Klan claimed to be Christians. There was the Inquisition that wasn't entirely fair, to say the least. They claim to be Christians. Catholics claim to be Christians. That's a story for another day for those of you who insist that the distinction is made between quote-unquote Catholics and quote-unquote Christians. So there's that. You have every reason to not believe the Romans and the churches as we see their failure, as we see their propaganda, their psychology, their theater arts, their complicity with the government operations. We have every reason to not believe them. Countless Christians have been locked up for despicable crimes. Countless Christians, molest children, and on and on and on. We have no reason to believe that group of people in its sum total form when they say that you just know that the literal narrative is correct. Now, when I was younger, now bear with me now. For those of you who are like, how dare you? When I was younger, I did somewhat believe what they were saying when I was a young person. When I was a young person, I believed that there was a person named Jesus Christ. At some point, that name was given to him. If that wasn't his name, I didn't zoom in on that part so much. Who died to show you how to be loyal to God, to tell you what God demands, to make a kind of potent statement about what God requires. He allowed himself to be crucified and then came back to life to prove to you that he's the Son of God, so on and so forth. I mostly believed it perhaps, or somewhat believed it. It's hard to say the exact degree of belief I had, but because I kind of insisted on it, but I didn't wholeheartedly believe it because it was one incredible claim. I didn't believe that the Bible was infallible. I said, we don't even know who wrote the Bible, and you're all telling me that Christ didn't write in the Bible. Why not? If he didn't find it important enough to write stories that would go into the Bible or write something that goes into the Bible, why would you expect me to believe this? Why would God expect me to believe this? God didn't write the Bible and Jesus didn't write the Bible. I knew that they were lying about a great many things and that they were basically white supremacists on the spectrum in the churches and token minorities. I knew that beyond a reasonable doubt. If someone would have said to me back then that this is exactly why the miracles are figurative, and it's even in their own language that Marshall is marital scrambled, as in marriage, and obviously Christ is the bridegroom, and it says in Psalm 19 that the bridegroom is the champion, and then it's more logical to believe that the miracles are figurative. They would have said to me that if it had rained 40 days and 40 nights to the point where the water covered the whole world, including the Mount Everest, you name it. Okay, there'd be waves a mile high plus, and it wouldn't be so much rain, it'll be like floods coming from the sky. Just huge amounts of water, like buckets of water being poured down, so to speak, to scale, right? Massive flooding of water from the sky. So that boat would have been ripped to shreds. I would have said, yes, I don't quite believe that story the first time. And when you put it like that, I really don't believe it. And by the time I was in my 20s, I remember when I was 21 or 22, I said to my girlfriend's roommate at the time, Camille, I said just that. I said, I heard this, and I don't believe that people that Noah's Ark was literal. I believe that we evolved from a single-celled organism because that's the logical assumption with the information given at the time. That's always been my religion. By the way they do things, they delayed the process of me coming to a sound conclusion on what God expects me to believe in regards to the crucifixion of Christ. And God is not the author of disorder, but of peace with God through the way, the truth, and a righteous, just, and fair, and good life. Point number 3. Clearly, their attempts to cripple me, change the sound of my voice, change the shape of my body, to confuse people has failed. As people see that many people have had their looks changed, they've changed the way music sounds and the songs you used to hear before, they've changed things a certain way. We see the way people look in old YouTube videos has changed. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else point this out. So when they see me point out those 3 things, say they're changing things, and everyone else refuses to do that. So I'm talking about God, and I'm telling you the truth. They're not. I tell the truth about the highest moral path, the ideal man. I tell the truth about Marshall is marital scrambled and Christ is the bridegroom, proof profound. Have it. Who has it and who doesn't? The phrase have it is a play on words for av hit. You take the H from have, you put it on the it, and you get av hit. Bethlehem, built he ham. Isaiah 11:5, righteousness and faithfulness are his belt and his sash. If I would have heard this, I would have thought you were insane if you did not believe it. I would have said, are you kidding me? You're going to believe some fairy tale resurrection over that argument right there? Have you lost your mind? That's not rational. You're not being honest. That's rather intellectually dishonest of you. That's disingenuous. That's nonsense. Where I believe in wisdom and sense. If you would have pointed to Proverbs, where it says that there's riddles and sayings and parables that come from the wise, and not just from Jesus. I would have said there's even a book in the Bible with wise sayings that are similar to martial arts sayings, some martial arts sayings at times, that says it's there to help you understand the riddles, the parables. And if someone would have pointed to the water being figurative in Revelation, walking on water, the body is like 60% water. Resurrection, right? Turning water into wine. I would have said, if you expect me to believe that the miracles are literal now, man, you need help. And I'm not quite sure the psychiatrists and them can help you, because they drug you based on what is socially normative instead of what is logically sound, what is universal logic. Yes, there are moral absolutes, and it is immoral to believe them and not me. Immoral. And on top of that, I'm the son of two doctors, one who's a brain surgeon and humanitarian. I mean, give me a break here. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is in Luke. I feel like it's Luke 12:57. I could be wrong. I quote a lot of scriptures. He says, why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? And when you couple that with Proverbs 16:12, it says, kings detest wrongdoing, for a throne is established in righteousness. Why can't you judge for yourselves that I'm the one who's established the throne in righteousness? That life is short and it's miserable because of evil people? And that it's worthwhile to rally and obey God through me and stand for what is exactly right. As people have not done this, lots of people have suffered. I've been speaking about preventable deaths since before 2016. I made songs about it. Where I expressed a lot of pain and misery and sadness. I think I might even shed tears in some of these songs. Freestyles, what have you. And I said, millions and millions of preventable deaths, that's way too many of them. Why is this happening? And by 2021, I presented a sound war on poverty plan that would have guaranteed to end homelessness rapidly. It would have been ended by 2022. They didn't want to do it. Very affordable plan, only $60 billion a year. All wealth taxes. It was $200 a month on average for people worth $1 million or more. Again, on average, progressively, right? The more you're worth, the more you're paying. $5 a month on average for people who were worth, taxpayers, mind you, who were worth less than $1 million. And on average, progressively. Some people might have to pay 10 cents, 2 cents. Other people, $20. They make, $70,000 a year or whatever. And society did not want to rally to the solution, the solution, the solution. It's right there in their language. And the Bible talks about the Tower of Babel, where there's talk of language, gospel, go spell. There's cryptograms and anagrams in the Bible. Shishak, Leb Kamai, Rahab. Those are cryptograms. It talks about the people, the water in Revelation 17 that the prostitute is sitting by many waters. They stand for the peoples, the nations, the multitudes, the languages. It talks about the water of life, right? Telling the truth. The true language of God is the truth. And it's the kind of spiritual state that you're in when you're telling the truth. And they have technologies these days that try to confuse you about that. And I have accounted against all odds, if in a sense, and truly with the upper hand from God Almighty, I have accounted for all the variables that would make it so someone wouldn't believe the most honest person that ever lived, which is me. Yes, I've made mistakes in my life. But when I truly came to realize who I am, honesty in its pure and precise form expressed itself. Thank you.